So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to many of us. Welcome to CEO Talk, a series conducted by CXOTV, where a CEO narrates a story and share their learning and their success of building a great brand. So today we have with us R. Mukund, CEO of Benchmark Gensuite. How are you doing, Mukund, today?
Hi, good evening to you, Anuj. Pleasure to meet you and virtually on Zoom. Doing well, thank you.
Okay. So, Mukund, before we dive into the discussion, tell me something about your experience. I can see that you have a very long experience of close to 3.5 decades, and and what was the need for a unified digital platform like a Benchmark Gensuite? Over to you. Yeah.
Oh, it's a great question. I appreciate you asking it. Yes, I have spent about 35 years right now in the safety, health, environmental, sustainability space. I have a PhD in the environmental space from the University of Illinois Nirvana. Before that, I went to IIT Kanpur, got my undergraduate degree there. And when I started in the environmental space, it really was about this is the early 90s, we were taking methods and new thoughts around environmental protection and worker health and safety and implementing them, in companies, in industrial operations. And what I saw was that when you have those types of commitments to do the right thing, do right by your employees, do right by the environment, one of the biggest challenges you have is how do you actualize those aspirations? You have to provide methods, tools, processes, management commitment, and culture to achieve all of those things. And it's easier said than done. You can certainly all work hard, and you may turn out to be the only thing you do. But the reality is you also have to make a product, deliver a service, which is your actual occupation. So what I realized was you need a digital platform, a digital tool. Calling it a digital platform in the late 90s would have been a stretch. We were a series of web-based applications that enable people to accomplish their personal and organizational objectives. And that's what grew into this platform today that we call Benchmark Gensuite.
Okay. So, in today's corporate landscape, EHS, sustainability, and ESG have become critical component of responsible business operation. How do you see the role of technology evolving in addressing these aspects?
Well, I think if I go back to what I just talked about in terms of the role of the platform, one of the things that we see and what we have invested the better part of 25 years doing is taking best practice processes, building them into a digital engine, and then ensuring that engine can look, feel, taste, sound like your own engine. So that's really the critical part, because everybody in any company wants to feel like it's part of their culture. It's part of how they do things. So what we've done is to innovate and build a digital platform that's unified, that enables exactly that transformation to happen. And the key to that transformation are the people in the enterprise. So any organization that is setting itself some objectives to be responsible, whether it's environmentally, employee health and safety wise, or societally through ESG more broadly, fundamentally has to engage all its workers, all its employees. And those people have to be provided ways in which they get connected to what the organization does, why that has these aspirations, and what they can do personally. So I think the most important thing technology can do is to connect those people, give them transparency, give them visibility more than anything else. I think give them sort of recognition for what they do, and then hold them accountable for accomplishing the things that it needs to do. So what really the technology part brings to the table is, of course, simplification, streamlining, everything that we do digital transformation for. But it becomes the backbone of how we do things, because ultimately it's the organization that makes the commitment, not the individual, even though the individual is who's doing it. So it's that marriage that the technology can enable.
Absolutely. I think the marriage between both the aspects are very important, and so you believe that advancement in technology has really empowered the organization to drive a responsible business operation and
Absolutely.
In fact, it has also helped in meeting the expectations of multiple stakeholders.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with this, we move down to the next question, which is, uh, Benchmark Gensuite place a strong emphasis on sustainability. What key strategies and technology would you believe are most effective in helping organizations meet their sustainability goals and report on their ESG initiatives?
Yeah, I think this is a continuation of what I just described, because I think one of the things you have to do when the management team, and of course, it has to flow from the management team, that has to decide that on behalf of its investors or its stakeholders, whether it's an NGO or a commercial enterprise, it doesn't matter. It has stakeholders that want to accomplish certain objectives, and they want to be societally responsible. They want to be a responsible business, as you said. They have to set some aspirations, and when they do, those aspirations then have to be converted into real, tangible activities and objectives. And I believe one of the most important things that companies can do at that point is use technology to enable them to better understand what is the footprint of their operation, whether it's on the climate side, whether it's on the environmental side. If you are running a cement plant, then your footprint is going to be very different from when you are running a solar plant. Absolutely. But you have a footprint nonetheless. And that footprint depends on your supply chain, depends where you're operating. You may be operating in a very congested area. You may be operating in a water stress area. It all depends on your particular operations. So baselining, using technology to baseline your operations, understand where they are, what are the aspects and what's material to your stakeholders. And those stakeholders, of course, all over across the board. It could be NGOs, it could be government, it could be employees, it could be investors, it could be the community. And once you understand those pieces, you can then put into this technology platform what your objectives are, how you are going to make them measurable, and how you're going to improve towards them. And then you engage your employees within the enterprise to carry out those functions. I mean, that's really ultimately where technology shines. But it even is critical to do a bunch of other things before that, because otherwise you go out and say, we're going to be the best. How do you quantify that? What do you mean by that, right? And what are you today? You only can be tomorrow with something you aspire to if you know where you are today. And that's, I think, where technology can really help you achieve those things.
Absolutely, contributing more to a sustainable future. So, ESG factors are increasingly considered as the indicator of companies' long-term sustainability and success. Can you share some examples of how Benchmark Gensuite solutions have helped companies enhance their ESG performance?
Yeah, certainly. I think the most, there's a number of management gurus who always said, what gets measured gets done. And I think that's one of the things that we are most proud of, is that when companies implement our management system, and it is a digital management system in this ESG, sustainability, and EHS space, one of the most amazing things that happen is not only does it connect people on a common way of doing things, it also helps them actually assess and learn things that are happening in their enterprise that they didn't even know. Well, somebody knew, but the enterprise didn't know. Local knowledge is great, but doesn't contribute to a global optimum. Yeah. And so one of the things that we do is we've seen companies benefit in a number of different ways. First off, the number of significant incidents that are happening in the enterprise immediately starts to have a reduction. And those are upset conditions. Those are conditions that relate to operational activities that are resulting in a spill or an employee injury, or those types of things. So, most recently we were working with a telecom manufacturer that are 20 plus billion revenues, turnover company, global. And when they implemented our platform, within about a year, they've seen already a 20% plus reduction in the number of serious incidents that occur. Is it all our platform? Absolutely not. I would be the first to tell you that it's not our platform, but our platform provided the visibility and sort of the insight into why those things were happening in the first place that allowed them to make the corrective actions so they could prevent them. So that's the number one way in which our platform supports is when it connects people, it allows you to make things visible. That visibility then drives improvement and focused improvement. Because I can improve lots of things, but there are some things that are more important than others. You need data for that, and you need a digital platform to compile, consolidate that. Because otherwise, you'll be doing yellow sticky notes or Excel spreadsheets, and that's not possible. You can imagine a $20 billion enterprise, but also the same thing. If you have 10 facilities, you cannot visit 10 facilities every day or every week. So we've seen reductions in climate footprint. We have seen reductions in, on a broad parameters. ESG, what we do is to provide the data management system that allows companies to show their management and their stakeholders what are our parameters and how are we improving them. And the moment you do that, you see improvements in those areas. Workers' compensation costs, reduction in illnesses and injuries, all of those areas are where we provide benefits to our customers.
Okay, so visibility and insight is something which you provide, to improve ESG performance. So COVID-19 has reshaped work environments and safety protocols. How has Benchmark Gensuite adapted its solution to address the evolving challenges related to employee health and safety in this new landscape?
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, we've all seen an incredible transformation in business in the last few years. We went from mid 2020 when we didn't know whether the world was going to continue or not, and today where we see a totally different world. And the way in which the world, I think in many cases now, during COVID, what we did, our digital platform was we very quickly adapted it. We worked with our customers across probably about 150 different companies to provide them solutions, tools that we built really quickly to manage their COVID cases as in the workplace and reduce the transmission risk. More recently, I think what we have seen is that environmental health and safety particularly has become truly important, and digital has become extremely important because people want in the dispersion, we've had a dispersion of the workforce, especially knowledge workers. People like me and others think that we can do everything from our home offices, only to some extent true. But certainly there's that migration that has occurred. And I think for enterprises, that represents a dispersion of risk because now your workers are all over the place. You have fewer workers taking care of critical operating equipment. You have fewer workers having to run assembly lines, all of those things that come with it. And the employees that you do have all over the place have risks because now they're going to different places and delivering the service that you're offering. So our digital platform, I think, we've adapted in many ways to ensure that the employees of these enterprises can still have access to the tools that keep them connected to the enterprise because they may be anywhere and there may be fewer of them, but they are still connected and effectively engaged. So that's really the shift that we're seeing and that we've been enabling.
Okay. So sustainability reporting is becoming more complex and regulated. How can organizations navigate this landscape effectively and ensure transparent, accurate, and compliant reporting?
Yes, you're indeed right that this not only has become important, it has become you see the sort of detailed assessments people are doing to confirm, are your numbers right? It's a sort of a validation, verification, claim to greenwashing. All of those things are out in the marketplace, and all of that is coming from the fact that the external stakeholders are saying we want to know whether your data are accurate or not. When you say you have reduced your footprint by this much, show us how you determine that. And of course, one of the most important things we believe in that is really doing an operational assessment of your enterprise, all of the individual entities that together contribute to your sustainability performance, whether it's on waste, water, environmental parameters, climate, carbon, or social aspects relating to workforce and diversity and all the other pieces. So, but specifically with respect to sustainability, the biggest challenge is making sure operationally you have cataloged and assessed your enterprise for both direct and indirect emissions, as well as your supply chain. Now, the supply chain is extremely difficult. It's what's called Scope 3 calculations in sustainability reporting. And we're doing a lot of work in that space with a number of different companies on how to make that more feasible, more viable, and sort of more automatic. It will take some time, but what it's doing is it's really putting some focus on accurately assessing what your climate footprint and your sustainability footprint looks like, as I said, across all the parameters that are of relevance. So I think the operational part, and then the beyond your fence line, if you will, right, are the two pieces that are the most challenging. And the more companies can do to get a handle on their direct and indirect emissions, as well as their sort of associated emissions and their footprint, is what is going to be really. Because if you think about water, for example, it's fine for you to say, well, I don't use any water, but all your suppliers do. So, you cannot say we're delivering great product and great service, but we don't use any water, when the reality is that your suppliers are doing all that on your behalf and you're excluding all of that. So people are going to ask more difficult questions, and people have to be more honest about what their footprint is.
Okay. So Mukund, you touched on operational assessment. So do you have a tool to validate these data points being fed into your system?
Absolutely. Our sustainability reporting module within the Benchmark Gensuite platform is actually designed as an operational solution. It's today used by over 100 companies from that range in size from a few $100 million in annual revenue up to billions. And what they're doing with that tool is establishing their entity structure across the enterprise, assigning responsibility to individuals at each of those places, and it could be more than one, to collect and confirm the inputs and the parameters that are relevant to establishing the sustainability footprint. And then we have business and BI solutions that are built into the tool that allow you to see that, visualize it, and see what impact, what improvement actions you can take to reduce those numbers or appropriately improve upon them.
It's more like a recommendation engine also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's allowing you to see where your footprint is, and then what tools you can apply to accomplish those the improvement in those plans. Yes.
That sounds good. Okay, so looking forward, what emerging trends or advancement do you anticipate in the EHS, sustainability, and ESG space, and how should the company prepare to embrace these changes?
Yeah, I think the common part of that is really there's lots of new things, and of course, if I didn't say AI, I would be sitting in a hole somewhere not knowing what else is going on around us. We all know AI is the number one thing out there. But I think the key to that is the fundamental unit is data. And that data is whether it's a person interacting with the system or data coming in from another system into this consolidation, or whether it's assessing that data through AI. It's all connected to the same piece, because in order to make an improvement, we need to know what that number looks like. What are we working with, right? So I think the biggest trends that I see happening are we're further reducing and simplifying how the human to digital interface is actually getting executed, if you will. Simpler tools, simpler capabilities, interoperable systems, so that if a water meter is out there somewhere, I don't need to go download that somewhere, write it somewhere, put it in somewhere. This is all human interaction. We don't particularly like doing that. We want to add value, and we don't think this is really adding value. So automating that, and then ultimately, of course, the biggest trend is AI. We've been investing over the last 3 to 5 years in AI to take and enable ways for companies to benefit from these large volumes of data that they're collecting, both in terms of insights that they can acquire from these data sets, but also identifying for them trends and predictive messagings, if you will, predictive communications that they would not have automatically figured out unless that they had invested a lot of time and a lot of expertise. And as you know, the power of AI really comes from the fact that it can assess large volumes of data and find associations, correlations, and and sort of factors that we didn't even know existed because as humans we can't process it. So what I think is the biggest transformation in the climate sustainability space will happen is the use of AI to help us transform and address some of the challenges that we have that we humans have created, but we can't solve ourselves. So we're gonna put some massive computers and systems to work to help us identify how we can make the corrective actions or changes that can flip the script, if you will, on what we've done from an environmental impact perspective.
Absolutely, Mukund. I think by anticipating and embracing the emerging trends and advancement in EHS and sustainability and ESG space, I think companies can position themselves as leaders in sustainability and drive positive impact, while also staying ahead of the regulatory requirements and customer expectations. So with this, we come to the end of the session. Thanks, Mukund, for such an insightful session. We really had a pleasure interacting with you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the questions and the interest. This is a very, very topical conversation, and
absolutely,
I'm pleased to share some thoughts, and appreciate all your questions.
So. Absolutely, thank you so very much.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.